right, so can Ethereum and the DeFi projects really start to shake things up? Could Ethereum maybe make a heavy move here with some key connect the dots? We're going to do that for you today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Today we're going to be breaking down kind of the concept of why Ethereum and DeFi in general could be moving fairly quickly. And this is something that I talk about a lot on the channel, is that there are usually a lot of actors that are making moves in the dark alleys of the cryptoverse. And I think that is also the case, though it's a little bit more bright and shiny these days anymore, at least, with a lot of the coverage being done really by the generalized crypto media, but also just because of many of the moves that are happening are coming from structured capital, meaning these companies who have to reveal kind of their strategy and what they're doing. And of course, today, that's kind of what we're going to dive into. Before I get started, we want to kind of just remind you guys, this is not, of course, financial advice. This is something that we put together packages like this. We use a whole set of tools that we use to help analyze and also drive into some of the media coverage. And then mainly from there, just follow the yellow brick road. Hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of understanding, but it is not financial advice. Always do your own research, double check your research, and always try to find a second and or even a third source when you start looking at news items, if that's helping you make news or decisions on your crypto investment journey. So just as a reminder, let's go over to CoinMarketCap and take a quick look at where we are right now. And we'll go up to the dominance. As you can kind of see, Bitcoin dominance at 45.7. This is actually up over the last couple of days. Ethereum, though, is climbing a little bit again at 18.1. And I think we did see a little bit of this movement, especially over this past weekend, where Bitcoin and Ethereum, as you can kind of see on Bitcoin right now, and well, let's go to Bitcoin's been doing good. Look at that AMP, though, man. We just did a video on AMP. By the way, you should check it out. You're going to like it. The point being is that Bitcoin has had a really good run over the past week. And the last couple of days, of course, we saw it hit over the 40K mark. But what we're going to be talking about today is Ethereum, and why do we see some movement happening with Ethereum? And is it stalled, or is there some potentials coming down the pipeline? I believe there is, and I think there's kind of some interesting aspects of that. Also, I want to jump over to Trade the Chain, and we'll take a look at Ethereum's sentiment currently, right now. Rising a little bit as Ethereum started its current move. That's on the 1 day. Let's go to the 7 day. You can kind of see that bump right here, which was a very interesting contrarian scenario right here as Ethereum started to pull out over the weekend and on June 13th. You can kind of see where it's coming from and then sliding up. That's on Trade the Chain. Of course, the market cap holding at 293.97 billion, and tweet volume is up quite a bit here, so that's good for Ethereum. So the key here that I wanted to bring in today's topic is a company you might recognize called State Street Financial, who has launched a crypto unit. And this is something that we are seeing happening really kind of around Wall Street in general. There are several out there that are starting to make moves, including Larry Fink over at BlackRock, including many others that are starting to position for a big run at crypto. And it may happen toward the end of this year, or it could be an early 2022 move. But this is also in line with where Cathie Wood, if you haven't had a chance to see my video on that analysis, but where she has basically kind of positioned that there are a lot of structured capital entities that are in the position both right now either gearing up and getting ready for a large haul into the crypto space, or they're starting to make some big moves strategically to do that. And that's kind of where State Street is going. And just before I jump to the news item, State Street is an American financial services and bank holding company. They're headquartered at Boston, basically. They're one of the oldest funds out there, starting in 1792. So it was a Union Bank, which is where this originated from, in 1792. So this is not a fly-by-night operation. This is a real scenario led by one of probably the top people in finance out there in the industry. Let's jump to the story, though, and that is a piece from over here on, as you guys probably read this, the block. State Street stands up new crypto unit as it eyes potential custody DeFi products. So you can kind of see where this is going, but I wanted to call attention to this right here. It's a real sign of commitment from our CEO, Chalker said, referring to Ron O'Hanley, who is their CEO, who in a statement said that digital assets are becoming an important part of the broadened financial services industry. This is clearly an indicator that is moving in the direction of digital assets and obviously DeFi. In a sense, State Street's new unit, staffed by 400 employees, continues much of its previous work in the digital asset market. The firm partnered with a number of companies offering Bitcoin products, serving as administrator for a planned Bitcoin ETF set to list on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It also appointed transfer agent for VanEck Bitcoin's trust. Now, VanEck, I want to talk about VanEck for a minute because they're a strategic player with State Street. And the reason all of this comes together for DeFi is there's a lot of activity and faith, I think, both from State Street and what their strategy is on digital assets, but also what VanEck is doing overseas in Europe. Just to kind of show you a little bit about who they are. Now, this is their investment news and insights section on their website, which is just vaneck.com. And you can, when you have something like digital assets that show up in here, I think it might even be in the investments queue right here on equities, incomes, let's see, digital assets right there. So you can kind of see they're very, very serious about how all of this is really playing out. But what I always look at when I'm kind of reviewing some of these firms is how much research are they truly putting into the overall program. And this one right here caught my attention, which is Ethereum's crypto evolutionary platform. And this was done, of course, by their CEO in Europe, and really quite a breakdown. If you get into it and read this one, this really kind of ties into it. But the point being with VanEck is that they have essentially put a fund together that they're listing on the Swiss Stock Exchange. And let me jump to that real quick, because this is something that's kind of interesting right here. And this is coming over from Finance Magnates. VanEck, a New York-based investment management firm, is listed 4 new cryptocurrency exchange-traded ETPs on SIX, which is Switzerland's stock exchange, leading stock exchange. Officially announced Friday, newly listed products will give investors exposure to the prices of the top 2 digital currencies, Bitcoin and Ethereum. They can also be traded against the US dollar and the Swiss franc. Exchange started, you can kind of see it, products is seen as a gateway for mainstream adoption, which I think is a big one. And when you look back at what State Street is doing in terms of the amount of people that are moving in terms of their teams and kind of their whole approach there, this is going to be big. Also, VanEck has become one of the many companies with their crypto products listed on the Swiss exchange. Additionally, SIX earned the reputation to become the crypto-friendly venue for a total of 100 crypto ETPs and structured products. Though the initial rush was only for Bitcoin, the demand for top altcoins like Ethereum is also gearing up. So this is my point, is when you look at companies that are starting to align in the stars, both from State Street and then also with VanEck, coming together with this, and they are not shying away from DeFi projects. That's the whole point here. When companies like this, these are billion-dollar investment houses and teams of 400 people that are essentially going to be studying the amount of DeFi projects that are happening, and obviously Ethereum with where it's going and what its potential is, especially with ETH 2.0. There are some very opportunistic moves here, I believe, that will happen. Now, there will be some things and some of the projects, I think, on the kind of the periphery that will take and be that drafting effect or the wake effect of where Ethereum is going and potentially where it's going. It has had a slow move over the past few weeks. I think a lot of that has been because it is so tied and pegged to Bitcoin. Whether or not Ethereum can pull the flippening, as a lot of pundits and analysts are looking at, I'm just not quite sure of it. I've talked to that topic a few times here on the show, and it's still a little bit loose, but I do believe that Ethereum has a tremendous opportunity to move quickly if these types of investment houses continue to move in the direction of DeFi. And it looks like State Street, VanEck, and many others are going to be going in this direction. So when you put you kind of link the dots together, you look where some of this backroom money is moving. And a lot of people look at sentiment. I always, of course, do look at sentiment, but I also look at those leading indicators. The leading indicators are typically the strategic moves that many of these kinds of organizations, including traditional companies that are doing this. Obviously, the nation states that we see moving into Bitcoin, we saw El Salvador making a move, and then Tanzania here over the weekend has already started to say, hey, central bank, you guys need to prep for this. Those are pretty upfront and out in the open. Where you have to really kind of dig and understand where and what is driving some of these movements is outside the mainstream, outside the Elon Musk tweets, outside the typical El Salvador bump news and those kinds of things. Where I see DeFi projects happening and moving is usually in the wings of these subtle elements that start moving the needle in a lot of where these projects are moving. And I think that's where we're heading, is a quick adoption in the DeFi phase of companies and investment houses like State Street and VanEck. And these are two perfect examples of them already paving the way. State Street paving the way with the crypto unit and all the number of people, 400 strong, and VanEck already starting to put together these projects to where they're going into the Swiss stock exchange and moving an aggressive way. Even though it's on a stock exchange that has been very friendly to crypto, the fact that they're moving so aggressively toward this really indicates a strong conviction for it, much like the Bitcoin maximalists that we see out there all the time. So we're going to continue to put these together. Again, Ethereum, I think, is on a heavy track. The key is catching Ethereum at the right spot for an entry point. Will we see it drop below the $2,000 mark again before the end of this year? I just don't think so. I think the bull market is probably starting to rev up a little bit for summer. And, it's kind of the altcoin season anyway. And I think the altcoins will start to trail along with Bitcoin as we see a little bit of a recovery here, especially if these kinds of news items continue to drop in a subtle way and following them closely. That's why you want to follow this channel and cover really kind of how we dig deep into some of these topics. Obviously, we tie in sentiment and things of that nature from time to time to kind of put these pieces together. If you're tuned in over on the podcast, make sure and subscribe. If you're watching us right here on YouTube, make sure and hit the bell and also subscribe to the channel. It's the way that we get the most help from you. And it's also a great way in the comments down below, and we read them all, of how we get ideas. If you have something, a project, or you have someone you'd love to see here on TechPath, we reach out to a ton of people and we work with so many people in the industry across all things crypto, EV, AI. Send us a note, producer@reverendnetworks.com. Hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.